you need to understand that this is not a vegan issue. Are you wondering if vegan diets are really more expensive and elitist? Well, by the end of this video, you will have a better understanding of food access, privilege, and how to keep your grocery bill down as a vegan. For more holistic vegan analysis, subscribe to my channel below and hit that bell button so that you'll be notified every time I release new content. Hi friends, Serena here, and welcome back to my channel. For those of you who are new, I have been vegan since birth, and I teach people about veganism and help empower people to live ethically and sustainably in our complicated world. Let me start off by reminding everyone that veganism is not a diet. It is a philosophy, way of living, and principle of non-exploitation and non-violence that when applied to diet essentially means a diet free from animal products and animal flesh. So in other words, we're asking if it is expensive and elitist for someone to live off of only consuming plants and also doing their best to avoid supporting and purchasing products of violence and exploitation towards other beings. I recognize that not everyone has equal access to choosing what they eat in general. And for those who really don't have a choice and have to eat whatever is around them, I understand that those situations of need and necessity do exist, and I don't fault anyone for doing what they need to do to survive. However, the reality is that many plant-based foods, including ones that are both protein and calorie dense, are actually cheaper for people to survive off of and to feed the entire world off of. This is because plants take fewer inputs, energy, resources, water, and land to produce than comparable calorie and proteins in animal-based foods. So due to that inherent inefficiency in having to basically cycle nutrients and resources through animals to produce animal-based food products, it is both inherently cheaper and more sustainable to produce and consume plant-based foods. This is true historically too. Meat and dairy have almost always been more expensive than most plant foods and often considered the food of the kings and queens rather than the peasants, which that would make meat and dairy the elitist food, right? But traditionally, a lot of communities only ate very tiny amounts of meat and dairy as a little condiment or a side dish or something added on rare occasions or in special situations when the rest of their diet was predominantly plant-based. This is true of many indigenous communities around the world. And it wasn't until basically colonization and globalization and the rise of corporate fast food, global chains that actually brought the more American, westernized, heavy meat and dairy-centric and fast food-centric diet to many of these other communities and places around the world, really normalizing a meat and dairy heavy diet. However, in the United States today, a lot of the assumptions around vegan diets or veganism being more expensive come from things like plant-based meat and cheese alternatives, non-dairy milks, ice creams, and veggie burgers and fake meats, which sometimes are more expensive than comparable meat-based alternatives. However, the reason for this is that we have an incredibly rigged system with a federal bailout and subsidy program that is essentially artificially lowering what the price of meat and dairy and especially fast food products would naturally be. It's artificially lowering those, making them much cheaper for the consumer and much more competitive against the naturally cheaper plant-based products. Without that rigged system, without the dairy industry bailouts and subsidy programs artificially lowering the cost, the true cost of, say, a McDonald's burger would be like double, triple, even quadruple the price that it currently is. Without those policies in place, plant-based meat alternatives and cheeses would be much cheaper than the animal-based version of those. But even with this rigged system in place, when we look at the price of plant-based staples such as beans, rice, grains, veggies, pastas, those prices are still cheaper than the subsidized meat and dairy and fast food items for essentially a similar amount of calories. Let's take a look at an example. So I just picked some random items that you can find at a grocery store, a basic animal flesh protein source of chicken breast, boneless chicken breast, and I've compared that to two plant-based protein sources of beans, and of tofu. So 1 pound of boneless chicken breast is about $3.10, and that's about 750 calories. So let's compare that to 1 pound of dry black beans, which is on the WIC, it's WIC certified, and it's available at nearly every grocery store that exists. And 1 pound of dry black beans is $1.39. And it makes about 5 to 6 cups of cooked black beans, which is equivalent to somewhere between 1,100 to 1,300 calories. So that's for $1.30, you can get 1,300 calories of food. 1,300 calories of food. Whereas with the boneless chicken breast, for $3.10, you're only getting 750 calories of food. 1 pound of tofu is $1.75, and that's 340 calories. So 2 pounds of tofu is going to be about equivalent price and equivalent calories to 1 pound of chicken breast. So when we break it down by price per calorie, we can see that even with these subsidies and rigged systems, plant foods like beans and tofu are incredibly competitive and cheaper than an equivalent amount of calories from an animal-based source. Now, when it comes to elitism, price is not the only thing that matters. I mean, what good is that cheap bag of rice and beans if you don't own a car, you don't live in a neighborhood that has a grocery store, and the only thing in walking distance to you is a corner liquor store or that fast food restaurant? That's going to make eating vegan or eating anything remotely healthy or choosing something other than fast food incredibly difficult. And those situations and places really do exist. They are called either a food desert or a food apartheid. But let me be very clear. You need to understand that this is not a vegan issue. This is an issue of poverty, income inequality, systemic inequality, and general food access issues that are rooted in horrible corporate-driven and racist public policies. The problem I see with a lot of the rhetoric surrounding veganism being elitist and expensive is that people who are in a position where they absolutely can opt out of supporting animal products and animal exploitation, they're the ones that bring this up as an argument against veganism to deflect from their choice to continue eating animals and animal products. The number of people that are actually in circumstances that prevent them from going vegan is a very small minority. A 2018 analysis found that about 5% of the United States population actually lives in an area where they do not have easy access to an actual grocery store. While 5% is definitely a number that is still too high, that is a far cry from the more than 95% of the population that is not vegan and is regularly supporting animal exploitation. The vast majority of people could go vegan if they wanted to, and absolutely do have access and the ability to purchase and cook everyday staples like rice and beans, which are literally still staple foods for millions of people around the world today. I spent a few months a couple years ago volunteering at a reforestry camp in a small town in Haiti where the average annual income is $700 a year. Literally, Haiti is the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere. And at this reforestry camp that I was at, we were fed rice and beans nearly every day. That was our staple meal because it was the cheapest and most sustainable way to feed the most people. Here's the thing. If you personally have the ability to stop supporting animal exploitation and go vegan, then do it. If you are worried that not everyone else has that choice and ability to live vegan, then rather than criticizing vegans who are already doing our best to live as ethically and sustainably as possible, help people and organizations that are working to change these systems and working to make veganism and healthy whole plant foods more accessible to everyone in food apartheid situations and low-income communities. There are a lot of people and groups like Food Empowerment Project, which I really love, that are actively doing some really great work and advocating for both people and their food access, as well as animals and the environment, all at the same time. And everyone should be doing their absolute best to divest from animal exploitation. The more people that eat plants, that create demand for plant-based products and support the growth of veganism, the more accessible and affordable it becomes to literally everyone else around the world. So here's the controversial thing I'm gonna say now. I also believe that anyone who is truly dedicated to veganism can make it work pretty much regardless of their situation. I know people in all kinds of difficult situations, including people that are homeless, that manage to go and stay vegan while in those situations, because that's something that they have made a priority. And I think we need to be careful not to erase the experiences and voices of those individuals as well, by just assuming that, oh, if you're low income or oh, you're in this situation, you can't possibly go vegan. Because there are lots of people that are in those situations that have chosen to make it work. Let me know in the comments, what is your favorite cheap vegan go-to item? Now you know veganism isn't expensive or elitist, but going vegan might still seem really daunting. So for a free practical guide for transitioning to vegan, you can head over to my website and download your free guide now by signing up for my email list. Check out these videos next for some practical tips on actually going vegan and an inside look at how I actually shop and stock my pantry and kitchen. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a big thumbs up and hit that subscribe button below so you'll be notified next week when I release another video. I'll see you later.